Hey, shalom, everybody. This is Chris with firstcenturychristianity.net. This is a kind of a video blog or a podcast, they call them, to talk about homeschooling tips. I originally posted this as a written article on the website, firstcenturychristianity.net, and I will put the link to this uh, in the description wherever you might be listening to this, so that way you can jump right to it because this works a lot better in print. I'm making it in audio because there's about a few couple hundred people who don't ever go to the website and just listen to this through Rumble or Spotify or Apple or wherever. So I would encourage you guys to go to the website and read this one because it's got some very good links. I just didn't want you to miss out since this topic seems to be very popular and pretty important these days. So to 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 kick this off is that we are just now uh, transitioning our kids out of homeschool, our last kid out of homeschool and into kind of a pseudo adulthood situation that I'll talk about here in a little bit for the last one. And our experience doing this, leaving the traditional paths behind, we've learned some really good lessons and we've got some really good tools to help people who might be considering homeschooling. I said, where do we even start with this? But we also these tips also help people who are in the public schools or private schools to understand that you have got a lot more options at your fingertips for educating your child than you would think. Most people think it's just either public school or private school, and that's it, or homeschool, and like they just draw these heavy lines. But there's another big option out there once you're in high school that most people don't even consider, and it is helping us out a lot. So for the foundation of this is that we decided to go down this path, not necessarily because of our religion or any particular dogma or doctrine, other than the fact that my wife and I did not enjoy public high school at all. It was not an enjoyable experience, and for the most part, if you didn't really know how to navigate it, it was pretty bad. But everybody says to get into the that you don't want to leave the public schools because you'll lose that social aspect to it. Well, guess what? If you're not upper middle class and or really good at a particular sport, um, public high school is kind of a drag. And if you're of lower income, as my wife and I both were, or if you have fundamentalist parents, as we both did, people who are very strong in their religion, very opinionated, you can be ostracized pretty easy, and you can never really recover from that. You can't really cross over the social sectors or social sects of the high school set. Wherever you land pretty early on in like junior high school, that's pretty much where you stay. So we both had just a really odd time. I mean, I did have a couple of really good friends, and my parents were, they did what they could for me. Um, but I just didn't care for it, to tell you the truth. And my wife was bullied and picked on so much. We didn't meet each other until our 20s, by the way. But she was picked on and bullied so much in public school that she put herself through private school. And she did that by washing the dishes and laundry of the kids whose parents could afford to send them to the private Christian school that she went to. She would rather be humiliated in that manner than to go get picked on at the public school. So with that, when we started to go to have kids and have school, we started with private school. We started with a Christian school in Holt, Missouri, which is near Kearney, Missouri, called the Northern Hills Christian Academy. Um, we started with that because we really didn't want to have anything to do with the public school system at all. And this is when you just think about 15 years ago was so much different. But it was still, the kids were still coming out, with warped senses of reality and sexuality and stuff like that 15 years ago. Today, it's completely insufferable today. So I imagine that there are going to be a lot more parents doing this, especially after COVID, when the kids came home and started learning online, and the parents could see what they were learning in school about ridiculous ideas about American history and America's bad, you know, uh, people are bad, everything else, teaching the opposite of reality. So um, our kids are almost out of it, and I want to share these ideas, these concepts that we learned along the way, and our style to give you an idea if you're hoping to get out of this, this regular system. Okay, the first thing is the benefit to homeschooling. There is an enormous benefit in that at government school, public school, you learn everybody's a cookie cutter, and there's two branches. You take a test in junior high that gives you these Stanine scores, and if you test well on that test in junior high, it determines your entire future. Nobody explained this to me at the time. I got it out of a documentary called Expelled by Ben Stein, and all of a sudden my why I was never in class with my friends, even though we were the same grade. And I never understood why. I never understood why I was in a different history class. I was in a different government class than the people that the handful of friends and acquaintances that I had. And that's because of this test, the Stanine test that you take in junior high. And if you score high enough on it, they put you in the college bound lane. And if you don't score high enough, they put you in a different lane for becoming a worker or a laborer. And this is just designed back like in the 50s or the 60s when we had a lot of industry in the United States and it was preparing people for industry. So the people who scored high were college bound, and that's back when college meant something. So you were going to be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, a manager, and you would kind of be the white collar person at the plant, while everybody else would be in the different, the different lane, in the general lane. And so that's just the way it is in the public school system. That's so if they identify you as being gifted or being college material in your freshman or sophomore year, it's too late. You've already gone down this other path where you haven't taken the same classes. So the big blessing of homeschooling is that as parents of children, parents know, is that your children come with a uh, kind of predisposition. They come with their attitudes and their traits like from ground zero. As Yahweh said, He knit us together in the womb. They Kids come and have their attitudes and have the predisposed traits very early on. And so for my son is no inclination towards academics whatsoever. He loves fixing things, building things, working with his hands. So we were able to tailor things towards what he liked to do. He's also very athletic, or was very athletic, and so we tailored his activities towards somebody like that. And my middle daughter is very uh, articulate and loves to read, has an enormous vocabulary. So we tailor her more towards college life. And my youngest is similar in academics to her sister, and she is just an incredibly determined uh, young lady, and so she will do whatever it is that she decides to do. But with homeschooling, when you get off the beaten path, you don't have to do exactly what everybody else does. You can focus your child on activities that will help them to grow and learn and become successful at a much younger age. So for instance, a specific is that since my son was not an academic and he wanted to go into the trades, then that's what I taught him. I taught him let him fix stuff, let him build stuff, let him use power tools, the tape measure. He's done enormous projects around the house. In fact, the room I'm sitting in right now, a friend of mine taught my son how to frame and do drywall when he was like 11 years old or 12 years old. So he's been learning the different trades, and he's not afraid to take a piece of equipment apart and put it back together. And he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He enjoys physical work. So now he is a driller's assistant in the mining industry. He's done that for a year or two now. He's making great money, and he's able to use these skills with his work ethic to be able to make a living and make a company better. So this is a very tangible thing to do. He was not college material. These classes, and of course we made them read books. We made them understand American history, a lot of Bible stuff, language. We did all the basics, but by allowing him to focus more on what he wants to do, you lose a lot of friction and you have a better outcome because the kid doesn't get very frustrated trying to spend time, looking at the valence shell of of a nucleus of an atom, or looking at biology and all these long terms that he's just never going to apply to his life. So that's kind of where we were and where we started and where we ended up in a nutshell. Different states have different rules for homeschooling. So even though in this presentation or this talk and the accompanying printed blog at the website has ideas and has tips, you do have to check with your own state to see what the requirements are for having homeschool. It's not just free reign. Even in my state, Missouri, where it is remarkably little requirements to call yourself a homeschooler and to do stuff. It's very libertarian-esque in our laws here. In fact, there are laws in Missouri that do prevent homeschoolers from having to do stuff that public schoolers have to do. It's a very good state. It's one of the most favorable for homeschooling. But if you're in a different state, you have to be careful because you may have to submit grades periodically. You may have to meet some sort of requirements for education for yourself, and we didn't have to do any of that. But even though you don't have the rules, you need to keep track of what you teach your kids and have them do written work, have them do assignments. One thing is whenever we would go on a vacation, when they were younger, we go see a fish hatchery, we go see the Grand Canyon, I'd make them write essays about it. Describe the rocks, describe the experience. This way they learn how to become writers, they learn how to communicate without being sitting in a boring old classroom. And that was even kind of a drag because they didn't want to do that, but it did pay off because both of my daughters are acing their English classes right straight away. So when you start and you're very young, my first tip is that we did not start from scratch. We had no idea where to start, and so we started with the private school, the private Christian school in Holt, Missouri, and they were wonderful people. They were outstanding, but we needed to have somebody else teach our kids how to read and give our kids some sense of order. Children don't necessarily behave with their parents the same way they do with strangers who are in authority positions. We also wanted them to be able to respect teachers as authorities. Even though we are homeschoolers, we're not against other ways of schooling. And one hole that you get with homeschooling is that you're learning everything from the same two people. And so you don't really understand how to respect authority. We had a couple of ways of solving that problem, and we knew that was going to be a problem. One was the Northern Hills Christian Academy. That was a private school for us, and we would have kept the kids there. It was purely economic that we went with the home school. That was back the first time that gasoline got to $4 a gallon, and we had a big old Suburban like people with lots of kids do, and live 20 miles away from the school. So going back and forth and paying for the tuition was a financial burden that we bore too long, and it did cause us to go into debt that we should have pulled the plug on that sooner. But we stayed in as long as we could, and the kids today remember that. And one of my daughters met or saw a girl that she went to school with, and they caught up on time. So even though they only went a couple of years to the private school, it made a big impression. So if you can afford it, do that. If you can't afford it, then you should get with your church. For us, we're a Sabbath keeping church, and have classes, the Sabbath school classes or Sunday school classes, and have the kids, do some kind of order stuff. Now, we didn't really do the fellowshipping homeschool groups. Uh, we didn't really participate in that. My wife did for a little while, but we didn't mesh, and it was largely, I think, due to our religion. Of course, we're Messianic people, so we don't have the same exact Christian faith as everybody else, and everybody else was of the other faith. So maybe that's why that didn't work out, or maybe it's just because we're odd ducks. So the next is, how do you organize your house? How do you organize your family? And I really, really recommend that one parent be the designated breadwinner and concentrate on that, while the other concentrates on the schooling and running the house. Okay. And when you do that, right, this is the traditional nuclear family, right? In our case, I was the breadwinner, and I said, I'm going to go out and be a company man. I'm going to run, and I'm going to make money, and I'm going to concentrate on that. And then my wife, Diana, you've got the house and you got the homeschooling. It's the best way to do it. It's the best way to have some continuity and have a kind of an order to things. However, the parent who stays home is going to get burnt out and needs breaks. So I would, I probably didn't learn fast enough, but I go out on the road and I'd be out putting 60 hours and drive 1,200 miles because I traveled for a living. And I'd come home wiped out and just be upset to high heaven that the house was a mess and a destroyed area. I had to learn that my wife obviously did not want the house to look like that, and some bad thing happened during the week. With me being gone and her having the kids all the time, any type of emergency happened, kids get sick, appliances break or whatever, life goes south pretty fast. So I had to realize that when I came home and it was a mess, that she didn't want it to be a mess. And we used to even have weekends where she would go to a hotel by herself to sit in a tub and have some wine and just have some her time, just to decompress, and I could have some time alone with the kids. So my wife was the teacher, and she ran the house and she ran the chores, and frankly sometimes she just needed to be alone, or she needed to get some chores of her own done, or run some errands. So we even went to the point of putting the kids in daycare. 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, the kids go to daycare. I haven't mentioned it up until now, but if you think homeschooling is free, you're wrong. It's a lot cheaper than sending your kid to public education. And I know you just heard the needle run across the LP right there. Homeschooling is incredibly cheaper than public schooling, but it's not free. It's cheaper because every year the public schoolers have to get brand new clothes at the same time, and that's when the clothes are the most expensive. And they have to get all these supplies. They have to buy all these. Every public schooler, I'm just completely floored, is that they basically have to go to this building that your tax money pays for, and you have a teacher, but you have to bring the wipes, the Kleenex, this, the that, the other. You have to bring specific things. You have to have specific fees and whatever, and you end up spending a ton of money. So homeschooling is a lot cheaper because the kids go to school in their PJs. They don't really need a specific wardrobe, and they don't need things to be refreshed at the same time as the rest of society. So because you can buy things on the off times, you can wait till things are like going out of season and pick up bargains and whatever. because you don't have to buy stuff exactly when everybody else does. Homeschooling is cheaper, but it's not free. And so we went with the daycare, uh, and so that way that my wife could have some free time. We had three kids, two were 1 year apart, and one 2 years younger than the youngest, and it could be mayhem. And she needed some free time. So we paid for the daycare. Again, this is another place where the kids could learn to have authority figures and they could get with other kids. And it was a blessing. And the parent who doesn't do the homeschooling needs to set his or her expectations realistically. This is a really big thing, is that sometimes it would just be a complete disaster with all those kids, and it's a work in progress. So the parent who comes home needs to pitch in, even though you're wiped out. He needs to pitch in. Next comes the academic discipline, and this homeschooling is not free. And one thing that the public school people gravitate to is all of the sports that are associated with public school, and that even goes into college. It seems to me that the sports have overtaken the academics in the government sector entirely. So our kids needed to be in shape, and they needed to have disciplines. So we also, being Gen Xers, we really like individual sports like tennis or skateboarding, the X Games and stuff, Gen X Games. So our kids had to master something. They had to master either a sport or a musical instrument, at least one thing they had to take all the way through to fruition and learn from a professional. So this costs money, but it teaches them discipline, long-term goal setting. It gives them a great sense of accomplishment and gives them life skills that nobody can ever take from them. So the kids started with sports. They all started in gymnastics, and my son and my older daughter transitioned out to martial arts, and they both are black belt holders in different disciplines. And then my youngest stayed in gymnastics and got all the way up to the gold level of USAG. USAG is the same organization that the Olympic athletes operate under, United States Association of Gymnasts, I think is what it stands for. And this is where the prices come in, because martial art tournaments, martial arts gear, gymnastics tournaments, gymnastics leotards, they charge $80 for a leotard a girl's going to wear 5 times. These people have no shame. Okay, it's an $8 a piece of apparel, and they charge $80 for it because it's special, right? But we coughed up the money. We drove the kids all over the place. We gave them those experience, and it pays off because now they are confident and independent. And now we switch to the music. My middle daughter is a classical pianist. The Another homeschooling parent in our neighborhood has a music degree, and she taught all kinds of kids how to play the piano. She would have 20 students at a year, all the time. And my daughter can play Chopin, and she even taught her music theory and everything. So she's a classical musician, and nobody can ever take that away from her. Now my youngest has done a year and a half in guitar after she got out of gymnastics. She retired from from her gymnastics because she got as good as she was going to get and was bored with it. She became a gymnastics coach, but I said, you got to do something. And for some reason we had a guitar and an amp around, and I said, well, why don't you go to guitar lessons? And it turns out those aren't cheap either, but she's taking to it. So the point of all this rambling here is that you need to spend money to get your kids into activities that they have to commit to in order to get that long-term goal setting thing. Now, with the public school, you're just kind of in it, and you have to graduate. You have to get all your credits and everything. So you kind of learn the long-term goal setting. But with these things, with these individual sports, and with the musical stuff, they get to gain the skills and see themselves perform and compete against other people, and really get a sense of accomplishment with that. And the reason I focus on all this authorities stuff, people who are an authority, I don't mean like the policeman, or I don't mean like anything like that, but I mean people who have actually mastered subjects and are that deserve respect because they've put in the work. We have a problem today, particularly in certain sectors, where people who lack any like scientific expertise or any type of engineering training are through popularity are becoming authorities when they really are charlatans. And you have to have your kids learn from accredited, respected leaders in their fields. As I mentioned, the piano teacher had a degree from in music and was a credentialed music teacher who could do everything. Wasn't self-taught, wasn't YouTube taught. We have to teach our kids, even we go with a homeschool path, even with the public school path, you have to be able to discern fact from fiction when you become an adult. And that means being able to discern when somebody knows what they're talking about, whether they got the information through their own independent study or through traditional means. They have to when you have to identify real sources. This is what you learn in English 101, English 110. When you start writing papers, you learn that you have to you can't just quote Wikipedia, or you can't quote Billy Bob down the block or some YouTube video. You have to have sources that come from Wall Street Journal, Encyclopedia Britannica, and people. So the kids need to be able to identify who are charlatans and who are real leaders and actually know what they're talking about, so that when they grow up they don't get run amok. And that's a big problem today. There are quite a few people who I mean, there's people with these talk shows that are wildly popular, tens of millions of listeners, but these are just people who are talking about stuff that they just learned a minute ago. One of the most famous ones I think was Bill O'Reilly, who was a journalist, and he was talking about every topic under the sun. And then when the subject of ethanol came out, and he clearly had no idea what an ethanol in E85 car was. He didn't know they could run both on gas and on ethanol based stuff. Now, whether you like that topic or not, somebody who doesn't know that an E85 car can run both should not be providing any information on the usage of those vehicles. And that's just one case to where the kids need to be skeptical and skeptical of people, but then also when have a threshold to where they're going to be like, okay, I will listen to this person because they are, an authority on stuff versus people who are not. Curriculum is very, very important when you're homeschooling. So you can get an entire set of grade school curriculum, maybe even to junior high, in a box from, what's it called? Alpha Omega. There's another one called Teaching Textbooks. You can get this stuff from Mardel Christian Education. And there was teaching textbooks, math curriculum. These things are so inexpensive. The cost of public education today in this country is astonishing when you go buy the curriculum yourself. An entire year's curriculum for 7th or 8th grade, which includes history, geography, mathematics, English, is $400 or $500 for the entire year. That's it. And you're set, and you get a bunch of workbooks or CD-ROMs or programs that you could do on the computer that walk the kids all the way through and give them tutorials. And so that you have to have a curriculum, and you should set in on one that you kind of like. We did end up doing a little cherry picking over the years, but my wife had a month where she knew when she had to buy curriculum for the next year, and she'd go to Mardel Christian Education Store and get the curriculum. And by the way, if you're not Christian and you're listening to this, I would be shocked. But if you're not a believer and you're listening to this, the Christian bookstores sell a lot more stuff than just Christian stuff. Okay? And so you don't have to be a Christian to homeschool. You have, anybody can do this. And you may, for whatever reason. The public library. This is some of the big tips. So hopefully you've stayed for the entire, wow, I've been on 30 minutes now. The public library is your friend. It is the best resource that you could possibly have. Hours completely catered to the homeschoolers. They hosted homeschooling events. They had classes. They had movie night. This is where the kids could get together and socialize with each other. My daughters love to read books. So they had a relationship with the librarian. So they'd even call them and say, hey, your books are here. They call them on their phone. It's just absolutely it's so much value in that public library that the kids just loved going there and loved using it as a resource. If you have a mid-continent library, this is where a bunch of states in the middle of the country have kind of joined up as a league. If you have one mid-continent library card, you could use that for your whole family, okay? And it linked to a website called Mango Languages, which is like a Rosetta Stone. It's a tool for learning foreign languages, and I love it. Mango Languages, even if you have to pay for it, your kids are going to need to have foreign language. They have to have that, and they have to realize that speaking English and living in America is not the world. That the world is a much larger place than that. But this program called Mango Languages is astonishingly good. I was using it for Hebrew, and it teaches you how to read, write, and grammar and speak all at once, and it's a very good tool. I highly recommended it. Highly recommended. And again, if you go to firstcenturychristianity.net and search out homeschooling tips, and I'm going to put the link to this in the website. The link to all these resources will be at the website. Okay. Now, next one is curriculum. A curriculum. Already covered curriculum. I mean transcripts. Okay. Transcripts is the next thing. Keeping track of what the kids learn is generally important, but it becomes crucial when they go into high school. Transcripts are required to enter community college. Okay? So if you get this program called Transcript Pro, called homeschooltranscripts.com, it will direct you on how to get what you've done into a format that the colleges will accept. Okay, and ours was accepted so well that my daughter's GPA jumped her into English 101 and Math 101 straight away. She also took a test which told her that she wasn't ready for Math 101, so she started at Math 35 and paid for the 2 classes before she got to college level math, and that was wise of her as well. But this transcripts, you got to have them, and the program is actually going to take your work credits, your extracurricular activities, your music classes, your gymnastics classes, and it translates that into classes that are accepted. And we've used this both, and it has been accepted without question at the community college that my daughter's enrolled into. It's $50, I think, and it is an incredibly good resource for you if you do homeschooling, or if you have a blended a blended record. If your child goes, because you can do part-time high school and part-time homeschool, you can have a blended transcript, and this is a tool for fixing that too. I touched on entering the workforce and the trades. One good thing about homeschooling are the flexible hours. Our children, we've taught them to value money. We've taught them to work. They love money. They love spending money, and they love making money, and they love contributing to society. And if you're a homeschooler, guess what happens during the school year? You get your pick of jobs because you can work during the daytime. You can work from 10 to 2 while all the other kids are in high school, and you have your pick of jobs. The kids wanted out of the house. They wanted to meet people. They wanted to learn skills. And once they started getting an income and seeing taxes and how to file taxes and how to save money, my kids have debit cards, credit cards, bank accounts. Actually, only the older ones have credit cards. Checking accounts, financial tools, and they start learning how to manage their money. My daughters are doing so well that they're paying for their own community college, and they're working for it themselves. So it is still possible to do that. And it's because of the homeschooling, they were able to work pretty much wherever they wanted to work. And this has helped us immensely because they've progressed onto other jobs. And so my son at 20 years old has already got 4 good years of experience in the workforce, and so he's able to move up faster. Um, and oftentimes our children are mistaken for being much older than they are because they acquired work experience at such young ages. Now, please don't think I'm just bragging about my kids here. I'm trying to encourage you to do the same thing. What I'm talking about here in this podcast and what's on the blog on the blog is the experience of many homeschoolers, is that we want our children to be able to have successful lives, preferably have better lives than we did. And to do that, we have to be adaptable to situations, not just continually teaching them the same things that we learned, hoping that they have a better outcome, because life is much different now. The use of electronic media and Zoom meetings is almost exclusive, which was unheard of when I was a kid because computers were just coming out at that point. So with respect to college, homeschooling parents prepare students for college, while public school simply does not do this. Another knock on the government schools is that at no point in the rest of your life, unless you go work for the public school system, does your work life have any semblance to your high school, junior high school experience. It's just a strange phenomenon that this country cannot adapt its education to match real life. You're never going to work 9 months out of the year. You're never going to only have to be at work for 6.5 hours and have it count for the whole day. It just doesn't prepare you. Homeschooling prepares the kids because that's your job, is to give them tasks and get them to do it on autopilot, so that way they become self-motivated and they're able to manage multiple things at once. If your homeschool kid has a job and has homeschooling, they learn that they can flex their hours throughout the day or throughout the week to get done what needs to be done, which prepares them for a professional life. The biggest and most recent tip I want to share comes here at the end, so I hope you stayed for the whole one. My first daughter, my older daughter, we graduated her from school at 17 to enter into community college. It turns out that was a little bit of a mistake. I mean, she had earned it, and that was the goal, but she ended up paying full tuition for the community college and the books and everything. That's because we live in the country, we make too much money, and we didn't. She's trying to hunt down scholarships, and hopefully she does, and she's paying for it out of her own pocket. But with my 16-year-old enrolled herself in community college, she paid full tuition for her first class, and they said, "Wait, you're still in high school?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Send us your transcripts. You can co-enroll, and it costs half." So by keeping her at 16 as a high schooler, which she really is, and enrolling her in community college, the price of the classes were cut in half. And that is a humongous blessing. So now she's taking community college classes from 16 on. She's under no pressure. She's not like a full ride person. She doesn't have to take 4 to 6 classes a semester or anything like that. But she's moving in the right direction, and she's going to be hitting the ground running. And the community college aspect of it is something that you should really be looking at, even if your kids are in public school, because you can co-enroll in public school as well. And you can be a lot more prepared for life at 18 years old when you turn 18 than you would be if you were starting college at 18 years old. So I hope this helps people out. I know this isn't a religious post whatsoever, but with the state of affairs right now, with the increase in violence that's out there, with the ridiculousness of the LGBTQ, whatever letters that they're going to point at it, the indoctrination of our kids, and they're telling us that basically America's bad and everything that Americans have ever done is bad. If you're sick of it and you're looking to protect your kids, And then there's also this physical violence that's happening in the schools, and with the transgenderism, they're letting boys go in to girls' locker rooms and girls' bathrooms, and awful things are happening. There's a ton of stuff that's going on out there that you're going to want to start retreating into your house and protecting your kids, which you should be doing. I just wanted to put something out to help everybody to understand that the options that are out there, and we could share this confidently because we just got through doing it, and we're still in it for the last kid. So we are an authority on this. Remember, I was talking about, you don't want to talk, you don't want to, learn a trade from somebody who's never done the trade. You want to learn from people who are experienced and credentialed, and we have succeeded with 2 kids, and we're well on the way with the third. Um, you want to go to firstcenturychristianity.net and look at this blog. All the references that I had in here are linked off of the blog so that you can go there and get the transcript program, get the Mango Languages program, and the like. I thank you for listening. I'm sorry for going so long, but this, like I said, in the print version of this has been enormously popular and is a lot of traffic coming to the website for it. So I wanted to put this out in audio as well so that Rumble and Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever the heck this is going, everybody can have a chance to learn about it. But then you need to go to the website. And while you're at the website, you need to sign up to get the emails and everything. Okay? Thank you so much. Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you in the name of his son, Yeshua.